Oh, I see.
Sort it out.
Mark Ross is Ben?
I should have like a spare one in my pocket.
Or the next money.
All right, it's 3:30. I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of council, April 21st, 2026. I guess item 2.1, approval of the agenda, moved by Counselor Kroll, seconded by Counselor Thompson. I have to get used to moving my neck both places. I mean, I'd look over there if I was still there, but now I'm only looking over here. All in favor? Okay, that's approved. And then the adoption of the minutes, 3.1, moved by Counselor Kroll, seconded by Counselor DeAndretti. All in favor? So moved. Now, I'd like to do a motion to close. Recommendation that the meeting be closed in accordance with sections 91I and 90, why is that both the same? Community charter, discussions with municipal officers, employees, respecting municipal objectives, measures, progress reports for the purpose of preparing an annual report under section 98, annual municipal report. Do I have a mover? Counselor DeAndretti, seconded by Counselor Thompson. All in favor? The meeting is closed. Statements?
The BDO Canada Audit Final Report has been.
To the public, Counselor Kroll, Counselor Thompson. What's that?
Sorry about that, yeah.
That's okay. Is this, reopen to the public? And then we report from in camera? Sorry, that's my bad. Rusty. Now, should we take can we take a couple minute break here just to get our student counselor back in the room and so on and so forth? Recess for 2? Oh. I just want to let you know that we want to, yeah, I know, because this is a bit, it's a bit confusing because the delegation. There's no delegation.
Oh, cute.
Oh, okay. All right, so when we're in a recess, so we come back from recess, we'd like to address the financial statements?
Yeah.
No problem, yeah.
Just a
Yeah,
couple
because
of
there's a 7.1 here before bylaws anyway, so we'll just throw you in there.
Okay.
That's right?
Just need to report out on that resolution. I can read it out for you.
Okay, sure. I thought we just did that though.
Yeah, we have to do it in.
Okay, there you go, okay, yeah, that was my bad. Yeah, she's gonna read it out, it's okay. All right, we're back to the regular meeting of council. So, reporting from in camera. Would you like to read that, Tracy?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The resolution that came out of in camera and to be released is that BDO Canada Audit Final Report to Mayor and Council for the year ended December 31st, 2025 be received.
Thank you very much. Okay, so kind of like mashed in here is BDO did not stay, but the Director of Finance would like to speak to the draft financial statements. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll refer to the pages and the statements as I go through, and I think they'll be up on the screen too. So starting with page 1, management's responsibility for the financial statements. It's just to make clear that the financial statements of the town of Gibsons are the responsibility of management. We drafted them. It's up to us to make sure that they're correct. And as BDO made clear, their responsibility is to check. Because often people assume that because there was an auditor, the auditor actually made the financial statements. Sometimes they do, but not this time. Page 4, called the Statement of Financial Position. There's a couple of things council should be aware of. So about halfway down is something called net financial assets. And it's generally considered good if that number is positive. Because above there, basically what this page says is, if I take all of my financial assets, cash, investments, things I can turn into money, and then pay everything I have, including my long-term debt, even if it's due in 20 years from now, do I actually have enough cash on hand today to pay off every financial obligation I have? I mean, nobody would really run things that way, but it sure is a good test of like how solid you are financially. Now up above there, oh, and please, if there's a question, signal before we race on to other topics. Under liabilities is long-term debt. And that, of course, for local governments, well, any government, is a big deal. So in 2024, we had 9.26 million, and in 2025, we were up to 12.2. So there was an increase of about 3 million, and that's a net. I mean, there were a lot of payments made on existing debt. But the key additions, there was about 3.5 million in additions, 2 million plus in water, almost $1 million in sewer, and about $500,000 in general. So that was why we had the change there. The other thing is for council to have a feel, I mean, you hear about debt limits, and strangely, debt limits are not given to you, and your debt limit is $30 million. It's the province goes through a route of saying how much money you have available to service debt. Anyway, I have translated that into what the maximum debt would be for Gibsons today if Gibsons chose to borrow to the max, and it would be 30 million. So in 2025 year end, we have just over 12 million, and in theory, the town could borrow up to 30. So my takeaway from that is, well, the town uses debt. I wouldn't rate it heavily indebted. It's not even over the midpoint, but it's in that area. And of course, using debt wisely is good. You can enable a lot of things to happen that you otherwise couldn't, and then match the payment for them as you get the service benefits over a long period. Turning to page 5, this one's called Statement of Operations and Accumulated Surplus. I just wanted to flag how something was presented. So you'll see administrative services, $3 million in the 2025 column, and a budget of $1,365,000, so that's quite a difference. And what that is, or most of that difference is explained by the town received from BC for the new childcare spaces, $1.43 million or so in 25, and then it's been recorded here as an expense as we pass it on to the Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society, who are actually building the development, and because of the very long-term land lease and so on, and its mix into a multi-stage residential project, are essentially considered the owner of the everything overall. So it's not like we got money from BC and invested it in a capital asset that we put in our books. It was like, hey, grant in, grant out. And we'll see that one more time a little bit later. The other thing is for items of that nature, I mean, in future, we would probably prefer to put that in community services because that's what it's about. We're trying our hardest to make what our administrative service costs are as open and clear as possible. Page 6, Statement of Changes in Net Financial Assets. If you go down to the very bottom, it says net financial assets, which was what we saw in that 2 statements ago. But the thing I wanted to flag for you is if we had actually executed our fiscal plan, instead of ending up with under 2025 mid-column 2,253,000 cash greater than cash liabilities, we would have ended up in a minus position. And the reason for that is we have a lot of cash we're sitting on that are supposed to be invested in capital projects. So that cash is going to come off really fast. And we have some other monies in reserve that are going to get, well, not drained out, but like will go into some of these major infrastructure projects. So sometimes you do end up with your cash is less than the retirement cost of all your existing liabilities. And it's just a reflection that you've been busy reinvesting, and gradually over time you'll get it back to a positive. Bear with me. A few more, we're almost done. But I just find that people who are not familiar with public sector financial statements, it's hard for them to see these things, especially if they're not an accountant. Let's go to page 15. This is a really important one. It's note 7, accumulated surplus. So I realized at a public community dialogue session that somebody who is a pretty astute developer had actually mistaken this note in the past to mean that, for example, in 2025, that, oh, you have a surplus of $72 million. The town has $72 million in cash. That's great. You guys are in a good position. Stop increasing the taxes. You have a lot of money for asset management already. I hate to break it to us all, but it's the operating reserve accounts, 8 million, and the reserve funds, almost 4 million. That's cash and investments. That 60 million is just the net value we have in all those tangible capital assets, which we can't sell. Like, we couldn't really liquidate them for anything. We need them for the services we deliver. So turning to page 16, just a little bit more on that.
Do you know, funny enough, a person that I'm not going to name publicly, part of their platform that ran for mayor was that they said, what, you know, this town's like rich, like, do you remember that? I don't know. Anyway, it was kind of funny because like they were running for mayor and they interpreted that as, hey, you've got like $72 million. And you're kind of going, I don't think so. So that was kind of funny. Could I ask you one question though, as you flip through the pages? Is there a, like, just common, like, say, common person looks at this and goes, why would you go through the process of borrowing or getting a AAP and doing all this when you've got 19,600,000 in investments earning income? It's gone up by 3 million in 1 year. Like, if you looked at the portfolio investments, somebody might go, well, why wouldn't you just sell some investments and invest that in the waterfront? Like, what would your response to that be?
My response would be, first of all, a lot of that money is provincial or federal money with stipulations on how you can use it. And unfortunately, we've got plans on how to use it. And for the most part, it wouldn't help us on the foreshore. We have a number of capital reserves, but we raise that money for water or for sewer.
Yeah.
So by the time you minus off all of those, that's mostly where we have our extra money.
And sorry, is there limitations or restrictions or, other than the funds themselves that are held in investments, like, for your municipality?
Very much so. So the community charter essentially limits us to fixed income instruments.
Yeah.
And even that gets limited further. So essentially, your options are term deposits.
Yeah. Although some of the interest rates that you can borrow on are lower than even a fixed rate term deposit. So it almost, you know, you could almost make sense of saying, why would I not borrow? I can get it at 1.5 and this is making 3.12 or whatever, right? So anyway, just as you were.
Back to note 7. So over to page 16 where note 7 continues. And it follows up the points just raised. So if you look at 7A, operating reserve accounts, okay, that's nice. That very, well, and then you look at what's in there on the left. There's 5 items to do with the general fund, 3 for water, 3 for sewer. If you go back up to the top, the first line, general fund prior year surplus. This is the town's unrestricted general surplus that has no rules around how it may be used, and we would like, I would suggest, to have $2 million there. So we opened 2024 with 547, interest and contributions 123, expenditures 315. At year end, we were at 355,000. We've just worked through budget, and the decision was made, okay, there are some things to do with drainage that we will 1 more year charge here. And that will take us very, very low. And then, as the deputy mayor commented, and the mayor previously too, it's like, yeah, perhaps we could go on a program where we can find some way of slowly but surely adding money there, but no great rush. I think the town has generally had lower unrestricted general surplus amounts available, but it's certainly been $1 million more than that, so the 1.3 million level. And as I said, I think 2 would be minimum. So I just wanted to point that out. Another one, 7B, capital reserve funds. It's the general fund capital works. And I'll just leave it that, yeah, that's, considering that that's not water or sewer or any of the others, but buildings and parks and all of that, that's just not enough money to be working with for reinvestment. So council has already noted that from budget, and staff already being directed in this next fall, when we start the next cycle, please bring back these items listed and some recommendations of what to do with them. Page 17, childcare facility. So we do have a note here that sets out that the town made a commitment to the province. The province has given money to the town to open or construct and open a facility and run it for 15 years. The town, separate of the province, has made its own agreement with Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing to go and construct, open the facility, and run it for 15 years. So in the fall of 2026, we are hopeful that that facility would be ready to open. We haven't had any recent news, at least that I've heard, that the arrangements for the management of the facility are in place, but we remain hopeful. I mean, it's April, there's time, but it is an important thing to have ready, because the province will look to the town, not to the society. Page 19 is got something called tangible capital assets. But if you just go down to the bottom right under 2025, I just wanted to flag something there. So this combines all of the capital assets, water, sewer, general, everything. And the cost at the end of the year was $104,991,000. I know you've heard this before, but I just want to remind everyone that if we replace that 104 million today, we'd probably be talking about 300 million. So this is historical cost accounting. You have to be cautious with it. It does give us one more piece of information. The accumulated amortization, the accumulated town write-off on that 100 million in assets is 35. So it's suggesting overall as an average that there's a lot of life left in a lot of those assets, which is great, but you have to be careful with averages. There's also a number that there's not a lot of life left in them. And in the financial models we showed as part of budgeting, those would be the backlog figures right at the front on those graphs. That's it for that one, and I think, oh, wait. One last one. For those who want to get further detail, so I'm on page 30 and 31, further detail on the statement of operations by segment, where you can actually see the services and the revenues with those services and the expenses with those services. This is a handy one to refer back to anytime, and there were a couple of things I needed to flag for you on page 30. So under administrative services, that 1,570,000, again, about 1.43 million of that is the childcare finance grant flow through, and it was just expense there. And another one in the administrative column that could be confusing for any of us, community grants, 350,000. Now, as council knows, we really don't have a grant program. There's much smaller amounts, and you see those in the other department columns. That 350,000 are all the donations that come into the town for charitable tax receipts, specifically for the Gibsons Public Market Capital Campaign and for Harmony Hall and the seniors' work, their ongoing capital work. That's what that 350,000 is. So it came in, and we, in that case, floated out, but we only do such arrangements for a very limited number of properties and very limited number of groups. And that, those are the things I just wanted to make sure you're aware of in these statements. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Very informative, concise, informative. it's always good for, I guess, counselors to have a little bit of, fallback financial knowledge and not just stare at a blank page or a page that they don't understand. So thank you so much for that. I guess we'll move to 8.1, elections bylaw number 1345. We already did that, didn't we? Didn't we? No? Okay. Does somebody want to move the recommendation? Counselor DeAndretti, seconded by Counselor Crowell. All in favor? Okay. Now we can go to 8.1. Elections bylaw. Are you speaking to this?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, this is just part of the election planning process. Got first, second, and third reading at the last council meeting, and it's just before you for adoption.
Okay.
Thank you.
Counselor Crowell, Counselor Thompson, all in favor? Okay, that's been adopted. Administration reports, Director of Finance, general municipal tax rates for 2026.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would, if I could, the report writes it up as best I can, but if I could, I would like to take you through this big sheet. Yes, it would be nice if it was on the screen. Last year, while I did do this work actually didn't make it to council. We went right past this step and into the tax bylaws. So it's all a matter of how much timing is available, but it is good to disclose how this was done. So over on the left-hand side, columns 1, 2, 3, 4, essentially, well, I should step back for a minute. Council's gone through a process and it's determined that the general fund needs $5,158,286 in general taxation. So that's great. But then we have to share that across the property classes, and that's done in a fairly established way. But still, there are a few small options, and it's best that council be aware of what was done, because sometimes there are really good options to consider. I'm afraid not this year. So on the left-hand side, columns 2, 3, 4, we start the process by saying, okay, let's put down what the values were last year, the tax rates, and how much tax we got from each class. Great, that's $4,745,000. And then during 2025, there were a bunch of, there was an increase in value, which was non-market based. So it's all the things like occupancy permits issued for residential properties is most of what we see here. But it can range from boundaries, reclassifications of properties in part or in whole from one class to another. A lot goes on. But how it's treated is really important. So in columns 5, 6, and 7, what's happened here is we've essentially said class 1, non-market increase in value, $24,568,000. We've said, okay, we want to restate our base, our 2025 starting point, as though all of this new value was there in 2025 and they paid the same rates that the rest of us did, so that we're all equal starting 2026. And that triggers a value of $38,683 in column 7. Now, further down under business, other, and recreational nonprofit, and those are net figures of non-market change, I considered that value change really small. So in the next column, I said, oh, let's not reset how much class 6 or class 8 pays. let's just keep them still contributing the 1,247,000 and the 39,650. We won't reduce the taxation from that class. We're just interested in updrafts in value and growing our tax base that way. So having done that, you'll see in green in column 7, the value was 38,683. Forgive me, I thought we were going to have more value there. But when we went from the completed roll in December to the revised BC assessment roll in March, after they made a bunch of corrections and adjustments and so on, our value went down there and we didn't get the full tax point I was hoping for, because some may have already noticed I thought we were at 7.7 and now we're at 7.8. That's what happened there. So in 5, 6, and 7, having treated not the new non-market values that way, you update the base, and now, okay, our base properties in column 9 will now generate $4,783,695, keeping everything as fair as possible. And then in the next column, if you go up to top of column 10 at 7.83, that's actually where I'm adjusting the rate there to trigger enough value increase to raise the 5,158,000. So that's how we got 7.8, and the spreadsheet then sorts out in the same correct proportions which class is going to be contributing those additional amounts. And that gets us our new tax balance. So we're in column 11, we've raised 5,158,287. We were planning to raise 5,158,286, so $1 difference. Now we take the revised 26 tax roll with all of the values in total for the classes, and we sort out what the tax rate will be to raise the amounts of money in column 11. And then, of course, nothing is simple. The numbers that result in column 13 aren't quite right. So in column 14, we apply a couple of regulatory tests, which essentially say thou shalt not charge utilities more than 40, or 4.39 times what you're charging business. So I have increased the burden on utilities just a little bit there to make everything work. And if you just roll along to column 18, having made those adjustments, it's like, okay, and we're still raising 5,158,287. And then we can do our where we're interested, we can do our comparisons of what the municipal class multiples are. So column 19 is important that way. And the staff report spends some time. It sets out that, yes, Gibsons does not have a big heavy industry class, light industry class. It doesn't have a whole bunch of classes to share the tax burden. It has 2 to share the tax burden pretty much, residential and business. And there were times not that long ago in past decades where business just took it in the teeth. Like there were especially in the biggest urban areas, the multiples were not remotely fair. However, that's not the case here. That's not unreasonable at all that business is at 2.5587 times the residential rate. So care was taken to consider that as part of this. And then when you look over in column 23, it's like, great, all of this is being done. You'll see, yes, all the classes are looking at 7.83%, and it's just the utilities that got a bit more than that. Last parts of this sheet to consider, I mean, in this year it's not applicable, but in the bottom right, there's a small table that sets out how much of the tax increase is related to the RCMP contract. None. How much is related to increasing infrastructure reinvestment? General fund? None. This is all about maintaining or increasing municipal services, and in this year, it's mostly about maintaining. Finally, in the middle at the bottom, I won't take us through this, but essentially, this breaks things down in a way that we can report on the tax notice how much tax is, so for example, in column 13, 598,128 in blue. It's, yeah, there's no increase in the percentage that's coming in for the RCMP, but in total, we are still raising $598,128 towards that goal. We're raising $47,000 towards general fund infrastructure. And then after that, the rest is being raised for general operating budget, pretty much. And those are the key points on this sheet. And this is what's being recommended for going on and doing the rates in the tax bylaw.
Thanks. I like this graph. Oh, and thanks for the businesses. My first budget was over 3, the multiplier, like in Gibsons. So I'm sure they'll be happy about that. I do have some questions from councilors. Councilor DeAndre?
Actually, I was curious, how much was last year's multiplier, business class multiple?
2.7 something, I think. I think it was.
I have a bad feeling that I took out last year's out of this binder, which is a shame. But I'll see. We need the multiplier. I'm sorry, I don't have it, but I know it was very similar. Because we've hardly changed anything here. It's just, yeah, we're pretty much raising 7.8 and we're sharing it pretty much the same shares across the property classes.
Sure.
Well, I was just trying to understand because I related the multiplier with the increase in 1.14 in residential. It might not be the case. Obviously, I'm not expert in the subject, but
That's okay. If you look at column 19, the municipal multiplier is always 1. And then every other class gets, well, they could pay the same, but generally speaking, they end up with a multiple that's higher than that. Sometimes recreational and nonprofit and farms sometimes are the same as the recreational multiplier, but it just depends on the municipality and, you know, all the factors that go into it.
That's good. It's 1.
no, no, I'm just trying to understand. So does it mean that the increase in 1.14% has nothing to do with the change in multiplier? I'm just having this association.
Where is the 114?
Oh, the
That you're
the baseline tax increase for residential, while no one had tax increase, residential had.
Okay, we're over in column 8.
Yeah,
And what that's saying is, well, if you look over in column 3, in 2025, we had 2,152,276 and so on. And then in column 5, we had things that became residential properties with value. So on new residential properties to tax that became taxable in 2025 had a value of $24,568,000. And essentially what that did was that increased the amount not only of the residential class, but it changed its share of everybody by that amount. So it was still neutral. It didn't penalize residential. It was just noting that, hey, residential is bigger now. And everybody in residential should share the same way we all did in 25 as a starting point for 26. And then everyone we have in 26 will share our 7.8% increase.
Counselor Crowe?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. First of all, I just want to congratulate the Director of Finance, because this really irons out a lot of the wrinkles in the fabric of, budgeting and taxation. So I really appreciate how clear this has made things. And, it's, I do hope that people look at this, because I can understand with, it's been sort of stated publicly that we were looking at a rate which has gone up slightly, but I think this certainly eliminates any sort of concerns as to why we're at the figure we're currently at. So I really appreciate it. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to thank you profusely for the work you've done. I look at this spreadsheet and I'm just in awe. Because a lot of times this stuff is really confusing, and you've just made it very simple, and I appreciate the length you've gone to for it.
What he's trying to say is you're either really, really smart or you're completely insane when you hand
I
this to
would like
someone.
to say that while I have made a number of improvements on this spreadsheet, I got this spreadsheet from the first deputy of finance who trained me. This was from her, and I make sure anything good somewhere carries on with me.
Okay, so we did the elections bylaw already, didn't we? And the Director's Finances is 9.1, so does someone want to move the recommendation? Counselor Crowell? Counselor DeAndretti, all in favor? Okay, back to the Director of Finance. 9.2.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is seeking council's permission. I wondered when I wrote this whether we'd actually get the expression of interest in, but we haven't. We're still working to get that done in April. So Build Communities Strong Fund, along with Build Canada Homes, are the federal government's two key arms of money that local government can go at. And Build Communities Strong, from a local government perspective, has three streams. And the second stream of this is the direct stream. And buried in the information that describes what's happening, so this was announced April 9th by the Prime Minister, was, hey, if you can give us information on these headers, and you have a Class C cost estimate, and you're ready to put a shovel in the ground within 12 months, please send your EOI to EOI at whatever. So no program guide, basically nothing. So we were advised by the province that they won't, due to oversubscription, won't be able to help us with the REDIP $1 million grant application. So we're going to repackage a lot of that information under the proposed headers and just send this off, because we believe we have a project that Canada might be more interested in than the province was. And that's harbor access, stairs, 5 corners, washrooms, plaza setup, preparations for Upper Gibsons parking and shuttle, all of those good things. And the EOI is to ask for half of that money, because Canada hints that they'd like to see half from somebody, either us or BC would be fine. And the town, as its Plan B on REDIP, has over $1 million in BC money ready for this project. So that's what this is about.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor DeAndretti?
Remind me, the stairs, we still have a grant for the stairs, right? Sorry, through you.
We have a plan for all of those items I mentioned. There's no specific grant for the stairs alone. So we've packaged a whole bunch of pieces of work down in that area, and totaled over $2 million. And we have BC Growing Communities Fund money to step in where REDIP did not go, so that's fine. And right now, we have gas tax money that we've accumulated and allocated over the next few years for a federal share. So who knows what happens with this? So it's a chance to maybe have Canada directly fund this project and let us have the gas tax money back so we can use it for, we would have no problem finding places to use it.
So, okay, recommendations moved by Counselor Thompson, seconded by Counselor Kroll. All in favor? Passed. 9.3, Director of Infrastructure Services, Transportation Strategic Plan Contract Award.
Thank you. Not a whole lot I don't think that I need to say, other than that we had a lot of really strong submissions, and are excited to get started on this project. It's been a long time coming, it feels. Just wanted to highlight just quickly that there's going to be some public engagement ongoing through the timing, hopefully if council supports moving forward with this, would be late spring, and then also some engagement hopefully through the summer as well to kind of catch the more regular traffic patterns, and then also get some folks here during the tourism season where there can be a bit more kind of surges of traffic, and try to capture some of that as well. So I think with that, I'll just look to council if there's any questions. Sorry, I should also speak to the base cost of the project and the proposal. So we have a budget of $100,000 for the transportation strategic plan in the budget, or the financial plan. The base price is just a hair under $95,000. In the RFP, we did ask for the consultants to provide pricing for some optional items, which we think would add value. From reviewing the optional items that were proposed by McElhaney, we've identified a couple that we think would add a lot of value, and we have a recommendation here for an additional $30,000 to be committed on top of the 100 that was already in the financial plan, so that we're able to take care of some of the optional items, which would be primarily some traffic counts to kind of validate the assumptions around traffic flow, as well as supporting the advancement of the asset management plan for our transportation service. So that shows there as a recommendation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the report. I was speaking to, I think he's been speaking with you as well, Michael Godin. He lives on Harmony Lane. I was just did a wine tasting, and he was just chatting with me. And I said, well, this is coming up. So when you look at the scope, I mean, the scope's got a few things on it, but would that be, and I know there was an email sent, a woman requesting that a four-way stop be put at O'Shea and Shaw Road, and then Michael saying, well, this, Harmony Lane should be one-way, it's 20 kilometers. Like, are they gonna be looking at some of these things too, like one-way streets? Because I know a lot of communities have put in, like, for instance, I was just in Penticton a few weeks ago, and they're all their main streets are one way, and is that, would they be looking at that kind of stuff as well?
Yeah, so that is in scope. It is there's quite a bit to it that we want them to look at. So we're trying to thread the needle a little bit of keeping it, looking at, the whole transportation network and keeping it at a high level so that we're able to get good, consistent town-wide recommendations, but also granular enough that it can get into intersection by intersection recommendations. Yeah. We have been tracking, since I started, kind of requests from the public around maybe changes in traffic patterns where people say, hey, we'd like the speed limit slowed down on this street, or we think there should be a four-way here, or we think there should be a one-way street. Starting here and getting into the tail end of the Glassford Road discussions, wanted to take a more comprehensive look at those types of requests rather than just treat them as an isolated request. So that was, and Michael's been asking us patiently for probably since the 3 years I've been here about that specific issue, and it really came right on the heels of Glassford coming to a resolution. I didn't want to open the door to that as a one-off,
Sure.
and so we've said, hey, we're doing this plan. It's going to be a town-wide look, and so that's certainly one. And we'll send the list that we've accumulated over the last few years to the consultant and say we want to make sure that these get looked at, and then we'll have to work with them on scoping exactly what level of effort would go into that.
Yeah, the side, I guess, on the side of it was the one thing I thought of when I was talking to him was that, and you go to some of these other communities, is that it really facilitates like walking and biking as well on the same road, because now you have a one-way road instead of a two-way road. It's kind of like it would benefit our whole idea of this like active transportation. So anyway, that was a question he brought up, so I just put it on the thing. Councillor Dion, ready?
I just want to make a comment that I really appreciate the discussion with the options. I think it's really good because now, and actually I agree because everything made sense. So I just want to say, because I appreciate when the report is really comprehensive and it helps us to think, digest, and agree or disagree. But I would move. I agree.
You're going to move the recommendation and that additional 30,000?
Yes, I
Okay.
think it makes sense, yeah.
All right, seconded. Councillor Thompson, oh, you have a question? You want to did you second it? And we'll just go to discussion? You're seconding it, so you have a question?
Yes.
Go for it.
Thank you. We had the delegation of the net zero emission vehicles, and the consideration around that. There was a lot of appealing aspects in that presentation. Is that considered in any of these categories?
Through the deputy mayor, not specifically, but we did in scope ask them to consider different modalities. So when we drafted the RFP, that was before that delegation, we were thinking more, mobility scooters and e-bikes, e-scooters, and some whatever might come in the future. That would definitely be in scope of that type of consideration. So we'll make sure that specific type of e-vehicle gets considered as well. Yeah.
That's it? Okay. It's been a motion and seconded. A call to vote. All in favor? Okay. That passes. And now, let's see, yeah, music to Louise's ears. Motion to close. Do you have anything to say before you leave? No? You sure? Oh, okay. Recommendation that the meeting be closed in according with sections 91A-E and K of the Community Charter. And I was told I didn't have to read out all the explanations, so that was so awesome to hear. So yeah, this moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded Councillor DeAndretti, all in favor? Okay, meeting is closed. camera, in camera, those two items that you already discussed. Okay. Next,
So we just need to read those into the record.
Yeah.
We're going to open meeting now, so you want to
Yeah.
read them into the record.
okay,
I can do that. if
am
you
I
want.
reading them in or you're going to read
I
them?
can do it for you if you like.
I would love you to.
Super. Okay.
I like working.
So the items that have been released from in camera are the BC Ferries Advisory Select Committee appointments, moved by Councillor Kroll and seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the mayor be appointed as council member to BC Ferries Advisory be appointed as chair to the BC Ferries Advisory Select Committee, and that the following community representatives be appointed to the BC Ferries Advisory Select Committee for a 2-year term as follows: Annie Weiss, Grace Carter, Ashley Kearns, Aaron Kelly, Rob Benny, Rory Gowler, Bill Thum, and David Taylor. And the next item is the authorization to execute Green Shipping Corridor Program Contribution Agreement, moved by Councillor Kroll and seconded by Councillor Thompson, that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to execute the contribution agreement between the corporation of the town of Gibsons and His Majesty the King in right of Canada as represented by the Minister of Transport under the Green Shipping Corridor Program, Clean Port Stream for the modular shore charging infrastructure for domestic commercial vessels in coastal British Columbia project. And that was carried. Thank you very much.
Great job. I would have screwed that up. Okay, 13.1, next regular meeting of council to be held on Tuesday, May the 5th, 2026 at 3:30. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Thompson, all in favor? Okay, done.
I abolished